Hi, I'm Paul Hudak. I'm a business analytics consultant with LPA Systems. And today we're going to take a look at IBM Cognos Workspace. We're going to step through the application. I'm going to show you a little bit about the interface. We're going to learn a little bit about customizing an existing workspace, as well as creating a new workspace from scratch. Cognos Workspace allows you to reuse Cognos content inside of your workspace to create a dashboard either for your own consumption or for collaboration purposes with coworkers or other interested people. So what is Cognos Workspace? Well, it's an application that comes with your installation of Cognos. It allows you to reuse existing Cognos content, such as reports and pieces of reports, and be able to build dashboards and workspaces. You're able to customize as well the look and feel of your dashboard or your workspace. Cognos Workspace allows you to go in and change things at the level of like a color palette or chart types, things like that. There's also some collaboration features that you can use inside of Cognos Workspace. For instance, you can add comments to widgets, and you can also comment certain types of certain aspects, certain areas inside of certain types of report objects, for instance, crosstabs and lists. So what we're looking at now is the Cognos Workspace user interface. And you'll notice over here on the right, let me grab my laser pointer. Over here on the right-hand side, this is your content area. And for those of you that are Report Studio users, this should look pretty familiar to you. This is where we drag in our content into our workspace. So this is going to expose our Cognos content, so reports and things of that sort that we can pull in and create our dashboards with. Towards the bottom of this area is the Toolbox tab. Again, Cognos Workspace, this resembles Report Studio, I'm sorry. The Toolbox will expose other widgets that you can use to customize your workspace. So here we can use things like filters and widgets to show web pages and things of that sort. The workspace area is here in the middle. So this is our palette area where we drag in our Cognos content. So you can see we have a workspace here with multiple report parts. Also, the thing to point out, we can have additional tabs too. So we have a workspace here with 3 separate tabs. Now, one of the things with Workspace is this global area here on the left. This global area allows a user to control the scope of multiple report parts across tabs. So I can go in and, for instance, we have a slider filter here, which is this widget here. And I can control date across all 3 of my tabs at the same time. I also have some other types of filters up here too, and they would act in the same way if the report part or report was looking at that filtering condition. You'll notice at the top we have an application bar, and this is a bar where we have additional control that will enable additional control over the workspace as a whole. The share button is right here. This link will allow you to create a URL that will allow you can then send to colleagues or use in other applications to point to your workspace. So let's take a closer look at the Content tab. There's 3 different views for this Content tab: Tree, Thumbnail, and List. Now, there's not really a I guess I can't really say there's a reason for using any 3 other than personal preference. Me, myself, I use Tree View more than anything, which happens to be the default. But you might have the need to be able to view in Thumbnail or List View. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this tab was this My Favorites option that you have inside of here. Now, you can flag either reports. For instance, I have down here towards the right, I have right-clicked on a report inside of my Content tab, and you can see here that it says Add to My Favorites. Once I do that, a pointer gets created that gets exposed in this My Folders area, or My Favorites at the top of this drop-down menu. And when I come back into Cognos Workspace and select My Favorites, I'm going to have a pointer to my report here. So that's going to allow me to have some easier access to my reporting if I have favorite reports or reporting that I'm looking to use in a more frequent basis, and this will allow me to have quick access to it. The other thing to point out is also at the top, the search area. This is similar to the functionality inside of Cognos Connection, where you can search based on a name. So the different type of widgets that you can use inside of Cognos Workspace, typically you're going to use a report widget, and report widgets do exactly like you would expect. They allow you to go in and display the content from a report, either the whole report or parts of report. And I've listed some different types of some different authoring options that you have at your disposal. Reports that are authored in, for instance, Report Studio, Query Analysis, or Metric Studio can be used as source reports for your Cognos Workspace. One thing I do want to point out, as you begin to customize your workspaces inside of the tool, you don't need to worry about impacting the source report. All of the changes are managed through a copy that's made of the source report. So if you change color palettes or chart types or things of that sort, it's not impacting the source report. Now, another widget that you have at your disposal is the Navigator widget, which is it's very similar to Windows Explorer in that it'll show you like a folder view. So if you have users that have the need to, you want to give the users the ability to navigate to a folder and then choose the type of report that they can show inside of Cognos Workspace, this widget will allow you to do that. If you own PowerPlay Studio, that's another type of widget, or another type of authoring format that you can use in your Cognos Workspace, as well as being able to display TM1 content. So let's move over to the Toolbox area, the Toolbox tab on the next to the Content tab. The Toolbox, it displays widgets, kind of customized widgets that you can use to tailor the look and feel and actually navigation of your workspace. So the first one that I have listed here is this action button. And the action button gives the user the ability to navigate tabs. So I can come in to my workspace and add an action button to my workspace. When a user clicks on the action button, I can tell that action button, hey, go ahead and give the user the ability to move the user to the last tab or the second tab or the marketing tab. It allows me to navigate. Button filter is something that's new in the current release of Cognos 10.2.2, and the button filter is just a new type of filter that allow the user to click buttons to change the scope of a widget. You can display images, for instance, your company image, to customize and tailor your workspace. You can also display, for instance, your other content like your Cognos My Inbox and RSS feeds. Select value filters have been in Cognos Workspace for a while, and slider filters, which we had a representation of one in a previous slide, allow you to basically slide the object to control the scope. Web page icon or web page widget is also available, and that will allow you to display HTML content. We're going to do a demonstration that shows that ability. So looking a little more closely at Cognos Workspace, we have these action menus that allow for more customization either at the widget level or at the entire workspace level. And by clicking on these action buttons or action menus, you'll have different options depending on the type of source data or the type of source your widget is referencing. So for instance, over here we have control over this widget, this area chart, and we have these options. We can do things like resize the content, resize it to fit the content of the widget. We can export, also add a comment to this widget too. And we're going to have similar actually, they're not similar options at the workspace level, but you're going to have other options that will control the overall, have control over the overall workspace. So adding new tabs, removing tabs, things of that sort. So let's go ahead and get started with our demonstration. This is an example of an existing workspace. We have 4 widgets that are displaying 4 different types of content. So actually they're the same type of content, they're graphs. What we're displaying here is 4 different types of charts. So 2 bar charts, pie chart, and one of these charts here. Let me step back here. What we're displaying here what you're looking at is an existing Cognos workspace. We have 4 different types of charts. And what I wanted to show you, first of all, is this global area. Now the global area is what I pointed out earlier. To access it, you click on this bump out button, and that will either expose or collapse it into the frame of your web page, the frame of your browser. On the right, our content area is accessed in exactly the same way. We just simply right click on the blowout button, and I can see I have my public folders, and I can navigate that. Now, one thing I want to point out here, so we're looking at, these are folders. If you're familiar with Report Studio, these should look very familiar to you. And we also can see that we have a report here. The sales report normal was the name of the report. Now I can I can use this report as a whole, or by clicking on the icon to the left, I can expand the report to see what objects are inside. And I can see that there is a list as well as a combination chart. Now I can use either one of these inside of my workspace if I desire. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you some of the capabilities of Cognos Workspace to customize the look and feel of your workspace. So this is very handy if you have a group of users, if you have different reports from different authors, and you want to aggregate them into the workspace and create a common look and feel. It's an easy way to do this. So to do that, I need to access my widget menu. And what I do is I click inside of my widget, and I come up to the top, and I mouse over, I'll show you this, the change color palette option here. So I'm going to click the drop down menu. What that does is it shows me all of my color palette options. Now I think this color palette that I'm using here is too dull. I'd like to have something a little darker. So I'm going to choose the dynamic palette. Now I've updated my chart to have the dynamic palette. Also note that once I make this change, I haven't impacted the source report. And I mentioned this earlier, and that goes for all of the changes here that we're going to make. We're not able to make changes to the source report through Cognos Workspace. Now the next thing I'd like to change about this report is the look and feel, or this widget, is the look and feel of the way the data is represented. I want to choose a different chart type of chart. So let's go up to the top again here, and there's another icon that's called change display type. And if I click the drop down menu, I see that Cognos has some recommended values. So we have column chart being the most recommended, and then gauge chart being the 5th most recommended. What I want to do here is I'd like to switch it to a line chart. So I clicked on line, and there we go. I've updated the look and feel of my chart. I'm using a line chart instead of a bar chart. But I'm not real sure this really isn't the right type of chart for this type of data. What I really want to do is now that I have this switched to line chart, I'd like to switch it to a tabular format so the users can see the actual values represented, the summarized values represented instead of markers. So to do that, I need to put it in a crosstab is what I want to do. But if you remember, there wasn't a recommended value for a recommended chart type for crosstab. Now, I can access it though. I can come down here and click on more. And what Cognos allows me to do is to come in and see all of the available chart types, all of the chart types that are available to me. Notice on the right that I have a recommendation, and this is Cognos' explanation of why this chart could be useful. The other thing to point out about accessing charts in this manner is that you can come in and change the skin of each chart. So for instance, the default value is a 2-dimensional angular chart, bar chart, as we see right here. I can also choose a 2-dimensional cylindrical, as well as a 3D for both the cylindrical and the angular chart. I'm going to click on table, and that's going to allow me to choose crosstab. I could also choose list, but I'm going to choose crosstab in this case. And now my report has updated to a crosstab. So I've customized my report, my workspace at this point. And what I want to do as the owner of this workspace, I envision that I'm going to use this as a collaboration piece with teammates that are decentralized. So I notice as I come in to work in my workspace, as I come into my workspace first thing in the morning, I have the ability, and actually for any part of that day for that matter, I can come into my workspace and I can create comments inside of my content, either at the widget level or in the report level in this case. Now, I have my report part here, and I'm going to right click on a cell inside of my crosstab. So I have this ability here, comment. I'm going to add a comment to it. And notice that what Cognos does is it adds the value from the cell that I clicked in, that I added the comment from. So that's useful to know because it creates context for when the comment was created. So when tomorrow comes and this value is double what it is today, I'll have context to see that, oh, Paul typed in this is too low, and I can see that 132 million is too low. Tomorrow, when the value doubles, and I can see that it's 264 million and change, at that point, this comment would be obsolete at that point, and I could come in and delete it. So just to show you the action here, I can mouse over my comment that was created. Here's what it looks like after the comment gets created. See that? So now I can do things to this comment. So I can right click on it, and I can come down here and I can modify. I can say edit last. That's going to allow me to edit my last comment that was added. I can delete the last comment. I can add multiple comments too. So I get another comment here if I wanted to. Now keep in mind that Cognos will allow you to change or make updates to the most recent comment before you can update the ones that are further in the past. So you'll need to, if you have multiple comments and you want to change, say, the first comment that's the earliest, you'll need to remove the most recent comments before you can delete the one in the furthest past. So I can also add a comment at the widget level. So if I would like my team to review the widget as a whole, please review for our meeting today. I'm just trying to make a comment so it's now apparent that I would like the team to view this meeting today. So when they mouse over it, they can see that I would like them to view our meeting. Notice that it says anonymous on here. I'm logged in as an anonymous user. Typically, you would have the username of the person that left the comment here. One thing to point out about comments, as soon as you add the comment, it gets saved into either the widget or the widget frame. So it gets saved right away. So as soon as another user comes into the Cognos Workspace, they're going to be able to see that comment. That's important. You don't need to worry about saving the workspace before a comment is saved. So the next thing I'd like to do, I'd like to make some changes to this pie chart here in the bottom. I want to convert this to a column chart. And there's another way to, we're going to use the same menu button. We're going to use the same button. So notice that column chart is the first recommended chart in here. And I can choose that, and that would convert my pie chart to a column chart. But there's a quicker way to do it. I can actually click on the button because column chart is the highest recommended from Cognos. Clicking on the button, the change display type button, will choose the highest recommended chart type when clicked. So that's another way to make changes to your Cognos content. So what I showed you in this section of the demonstration was the ability to customize an existing workspace and create some collaboration features that you can use across your teams. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, so notice that I've commented inside of my, I've created a comment inside of my report part inside of this widget. Charts do not have the ability to add a comment, so I'm not able to add a comment to like a bar in a bar chart. If I would want to create a comment for this widget as a whole, I would have to add it at the widget level. So I would have to come up here and say comment widget, and that would allow me to comment widget, and I could point out, hey, check out bar chart, the bar for tents because I think the revenue is too low, or whatever I felt compelled to say. So let's go ahead and move to the next demonstration. And the next one, what I want to do is I want to create a workspace from scratch. So So I'm going to leave this page. I'm not going to save. And I'm going to go back into Cognos from the starting page. Now, some of you may see this screen when you log into Cognos, and you can to get in directly into Cognos Workspace, you can click on this option here. This will open up Cognos Workspace for you. Me personally, I actually get dropped right into the public folders when I log into Cognos and bypass that initial screen. And you can also access Cognos Workspace via the launch menu, which is what I'm going to do here. So Workspace launches, and I can see that I have my create new or open existing. Before I start creating a new workspace, I want to point out my how-to videos. I want to point out these how-to videos here. If you're new to Cognos Workspace, or even if you've used Cognos Workspace to some degree, these videos can be helpful for you. They're referenced from the IBM site, and they can give you some ideas on how to, like you see here, customize your workspace and some ways to, maybe more easily create workspaces for your personal use or collaborative uses. So let's go ahead and click on New. And you'll see now that I'm dropped into a one-tab workspace, which is the default when you create a new workspace. The first thing I want to do is I'd like to begin creating some customizations around my workspace. I'd like to add my company logo. So I'm going to grab an image icon, and I'm going to drop it in the upper left-hand corner here. What Cognos does is it gives me a wizard, and I can type in the location for my company logo. One thing to point out about too many periods there. There we go. This is the Great Outdoors Company logo I'm using. If you want to create reports and use customized images, typically if you've customized the skin of Cognos and you have say like images of your company loaded and you're able to see those in other areas of Cognos, your administrator has placed those images typically in the web server or on the web server, and your Cognos administrator may be able to give you links to those so you can reference those inside of your Cognos workspaces. So that's a nice feature to have if you want to start customizing some of your workspaces and make them look nice. So when clicking on this workspace, I'd like users to be transported to my company web page. So I'm going to go ahead and I've already typed the company web page. I'm going to drop it in here to the target URL. I'm going to hit OK, and you'll see what it looks like here. So I have my logo. One thing I wanted to do with this logo, I think it's a little bit too large, so I'd actually like to shrink it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and make a custom size on this. I'm going to do 200 pixels by 100. I think that'll make it look a little better. It does. But I have all this white space here. So I can manually come in and I can adjust this like so, or I can right click on widget actions and I can come down here and say resize to fit widget content. So what that does is it basically sucks in the edges and gets rid of the available white space around the content that's inside. But now when I click on my image, nothing happens. I don't have a web page isn't popping up. Now notice that I had the option when I created this image widget to say open a new window, and if I had selected that, my web page would open up in a new window. But I told it to broadcast all widgets. So we need to add a widget that's able to listen for a web page, which is the web page widget. I'm going to drop that in. But if a user doesn't click on my image, I would like to have another website displayed for users when they come into my workspace. And I'm just going to add the IBM URL here, and then when users come in, they're going to see my company logo, and then they're going to be transported. They're going to see the IBM website. But when they click on the logo, like I did just now, my LPA systems website pops up. So this is an example of inter-widget communication. So some of the communication that's happening between widgets behind the scenes. So now that I've added some custom content here to my my workspace, I'd like to start adding some of my reporting, so my other kind of more pertinent and content that has a content source from reports. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and navigate to the public folders, and this is in the samples area, models, go data warehouse, query, and it's under the Cognos Workspace source reports folder. And I have a bunch of reports. All of these reports are part of your samples, would be part of your samples data. I'm going to expand this revenue report here. What I want to look at, there's 3 reports that I want to use. I'd like to use the revenue by country bar chart, the order method pie chart, revenue by order method pie chart. Notice that I can drag these in, and I don't have to worry about waiting for Cognos to update. I'm able to drag them in very quickly. So if you have longer running maybe reports or parts of reports, you don't need to worry about waiting for the report to return you don't need to wait for the report to return before you can add another widget into your workspace. So I have my workspaces, or I have my report parts brought into my workspace now. I'm going to go ahead and rename my tab. I'm going to call this the revenue tab. And then I want to create another tab. I'm thinking I'm going to put in some margin reports. And I'm just going to say new tab. And I'm going to call this the margin tab. And these reports are sourced from the gross margin report right here. Now this is a good point to demonstrate the difference between dragging a report in as a whole or dragging a report in report parts. So I'm just going to drag over the gross margin report into my workspace. Notice that what Cognos does is it encapsulates both report parts into one widget frame. This isn't what I wanted though, because I wanted to position these in a different manner. I'm going to remove these. I'm going to add my gross margin reports one by one into my workspace because I wanted to stagger them like this. Now, what I've done up to this point is I've created a nice personalized web space for my own consumption. I don't have any interactivity. I'm referencing ports that maybe I created these reports myself. I can come in and I can reference this every day and get kind of a quick quick sense of what's happening. But I'd like to enable this. I'd like to enable this report so others can use it and can customize it to meet their needs. So what I want to do is I want to start adding some filters to my report. I'm going to come over to the Toolbox, and I'd like to add some filtering. So if you're familiar with Report Studio, in essence we're going to be adding some prompting to this workspace. What I want to do is I'd like to give the users the ability to select a country and be able to update this bar chart right here based on country. And if you notice, when I pulled over my select value filter, I get presented with another wizard. So my wizard, I'll try to explain this to you here. The wizard's showing me I have 3 different data items that I can use as a filtering to filter my widgets. And then it also shows me the corresponding widgets that are tied to that data item. So know that I want country. Notice down here, this portion of the wizard shows me what options will be available to users when they see the control inside of Cognos. I can customize this as well. I can remove countries from the list, and those countries will not be visible in the control. One new thing in Cognos 10.2.2 is this orientation feature. And this gives me some control over the look and feel of my filter. I can make the countries by default would be listed in a vertical fashion. I can also tell it to be listed horizontally or flow, which I'll show you what flow looks like here in a second. I'm going to keep all the other default values. I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice that I have my filter listed. Notice that I removed Australia and Austria from the selected options, and they're not listed in my filter. They're also not listed in my chart anymore. So the way this control works, it's very, very similar to the way it's exactly how you would expect. You choose what you want, you hit apply, and then that allows me to control the what's the scope is of this report part, or this report. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you a new control that is available to you inside of Cognos 10.2.2, and it's this button filter. So the button filter, you get presented with a wizard that's very similar to the last one we saw. I want to allow, in this case, I want to filter on a different data item. I'm going to filter on this order method, which is tied to the pie chart, the revenue by order method to pie chart. You can see here's our valid order methods that are available. And I'm going to keep all the other defaults, except I'm going to allow users the ability to choose multiple buttons to change the scope of the report. Here's what our button filter looks like. So the way this control works, it's very simple. You click on the buttons that you want to see, and then your report will then update according to the buttons you chose. So up to this point, I've created and actually before I step to the next section of this demonstration, this workspace is not organized very well, and I can manually move my widgets around if I desire. I can click on a widget and I can move these around. But there's a quicker way to allow, I don't know, possibly to help you with organizing these and to maybe get them lined up a little better. So I can right click in the white area and I can say arrange widgets to fit content. Cognos then tries to organize these as best as possible. Now I will point out that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I may actually want to move these in a manual format to put them exactly how I want, but that feature, that option is there for you to use. Right click and arrange all filters, widgets to fit content. So right now the filters that I've added are only applicable to this tab. What I want to do now is I'd like to give users the ability to change multiple widgets across all tabs in one kind of filtering action. To do that, we need to use our global filter area. So I'm going to drag a select value filter over here, and I'm going to choose, so there's some differences here I want to point out. This is the same control we used to filter to filter on country earlier. Notice that we have more options, or we have more available widgets inside of the wizard. So in addition to our revenue reports, we now can see that we have gross margin reports as well. What I'm going to filter on is this region, is what I want. So I need to choose two reports though, and right now by default I can only choose one at a time. It's very easy to switch this. I just select the filter on multiple related data items option at the top, and now I can choose my two reports that have the same filter. Notice that the data items named differently. Cognos will be able to handle that because the underlying data item in the database is the same, which is region. I'm going to keep all the other options the same, and I'm going to hit OK. And you can see I have a control that's very similar to our other control, our select value control, select value filter. So the way this control works is exactly the same. I'm going to compare the Americas to Northern and Southern Europe, hit apply. And our chart at the bottom here should update with our filter, according to our filter. So also on our margin tab, my donut chart has the same filtering condition, and it also updates to the Americas in Northern and Southern Europe. And just to show you that it works going both ways, we're going to compare the Americas to the other two regions and hit apply. That will change our donut chart. Actually, let's make it 2 so it looks a little different. And if I flip back to my revenue tab, my other chart changes. So I created a workspace, and I've enabled it for interactivity with not just for myself, but for other people, so they can come in and tailor this to meet their needs. So I went over how to annotate a widget, which is through the comments area. Keep in mind that when you add a comment, it gets saved as soon as you click save, and it's not dependent on the workspace. You also have the ability to export a workspace. You can export a widget from a workspace. So you'll need to individually do that at the widget level and you'll access that through the action menu, which is located right here, and select the export options. You have the options that are the same options that you would have available to, for instance, Report Studio, so PDF, Excel, CSV, and XML. One thing to point out is that you won't be able to use the Excel 2007 data export format for charts or crosstabs. You'll need to use Excel 2007. You'll also need to have Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Reader in order to use the PDF export option. To print a workspace, this function uses your browser's print capability. Typically what we do is we go to page setup inside of our browser and format the look and feel of the page from that level. Then you'd be able to use, then at that point you can go back into your workspace and print from there, making sure that the workspace is formatted and viewable in the way that you would like. When printing a workspace, you'll have to print one tab at a time as well, so you don't have the ability to print multiple tabs at the same time. You'll need to do them one by one. One of the other things that you have at your disposal is the ability to control what users can do or can't do in your workspace. So let's say I have a group of users that I just want to be able to view my data and not have the ability to, for instance, change the chart type or change the color palette or things of that sort. Well, I have these three different access levels: consume, interact, and assemble. So at consume, the consume level will give users the right to view a workspace or view workspaces. So they're not able to save, they're not able to add, delete, change colors, anything like that. They can add comments, however, they're not able to make changes to the workspace. Interact users have a little bit more abilities or a little bit more rights inside of the workspace. They can add comments, they can change the color palette and chart type. However, they're not able to add or delete content from the workspace. Assemblers, this is the level that I was doing the demonstration at, which is almost like basically full rights. So I can add, delete, adjust. I can basically adjust widgets. It's full rights is what it amounts to. Enabling this is not something that you as a user would be able to do. You'll need to involve your Cognos administrator and have him or her update the capabilities from the administration panel inside of Cognos. Now there's two new features that I want to go over. I would like to show you inside of Cognos. So the first feature is this notion of having a master filter on a widget. Now what master filters do is they allow you to use a widget as a filter. So I can add I can enable a widget as a master filter and allow that to change the scope in another filter. I'll demonstrate that here in a second. Typically, Cognos Workspace, you've not been able to author a report. And actually, you're not able to author reports from Cognos Workspace and share them outside of the workspace. Something new that's in Cognos 10.2.2 is the ability to author a new report inside of Cognos Workspace for your workspace. There's a couple caveats. That report cannot be used or accessed by other workspaces, and it can't be exported outside of your workspace. So it's in essence you're creating an object inside of the workspace only. Let's take a look at the demonstration on this. I think it'll be a little more clear once we step through. So the first thing I want to do is I'd like to show you how a report gets created inside of a workspace. And I'm going to navigate to the Go Data Warehouse query. I'm going to say Insert in Current Tab as New Report. So notice I right-clicked, and I'm saying Insert as New Report. Cognos then opens up Cognos Workspace Advanced. Let's just use a crosstab here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in, this is just going to be a very quick report. We're going to go into Sales and Marketing Query, and I want to pull in there we go, our sales query. Wasn't seeing it. I'd like to pull in from products, the product line for my rows. And for my columns, I'm going to choose year. And then for my default measure, we're going to choose gross profit. So I've created my report using Cognos Workspace Advanced. Click Done, and notice my crosstab is now available for my use inside of my workspace. Let's go ahead and move this. And actually, maybe a better way to do this is have it arrange all widgets to fit content. So now I have my crosstab, and what I'd like to do is I'm going to enable this for as a master filter. So I enable my menu up here, and I have this option that says Turn on Master Filter. I clicked it. My report is now enabled as a master filter. These two reports share product line as a dimension. So notice that this pie chart at the top has product line as a dimension, as well as which is the corresponds to our columns, or I'm sorry, our rows inside of our crosstab. So when I control click on multiple product lines, my pie chart updates accordingly, and I'm in effect filtering my pie chart with another widget. This is new in 10.2.2. And what I went through so far, or what I went through today, is I've showed you the interface, the Cognos Workspace interface. We walked through the interface. I showed you kind of generally where things are located in the interface of Cognos Workspace. We customized and enabled an existing workspace for collaboration. We also created a workspace from scratch. Now I'm at the point now where I'd like to take some questions. We've been getting some questions, and I'll go ahead and address a few of these now that we have a few minutes. Now, the first question that I have is, can you use an active report as a source report in Cognos Workspace? You can. There is a caveat, though. Your active report will need to have a saved output before it can be added. If it doesn't, you'll get an error that says something along the lines of unable to import content. So to get around this, ensure that your active report is set to view the most recent version, and the run options of the object have been set to save. So after you make these changes, run the report, and then the object should now you should be able to see the version icon inside of connections. Once you see that, you can then add the active report to your workspace, and it should show up. Now there's another question. And actually, I kind of cover this, how do I limit my user's ability to make changes inside of Cognos Workspace? So that actually gets back to the security security slide. And I'm just going to step back to that so you can review this again. The securities are driven from your Cognos administrator will need to make these changes. It's not something that as an end user you have the ability to do. If you happen to be an administrator on this call, I recommend that you go take a look at the security tab through Cognos administration and check out the executive dashboard capability. And I appreciate you taking the time today to learn a little bit about Cognos Workspace. If you have other questions, I know we're running out of time here, so any other questions that you have, we'll try to get back to you. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy your day.